Welcome to this week's episode of The Higher Self. I know that every week I tell you guys I'm really excited about this episode, but this week I'm actually really excited about this episode. And I'm going to tell you why. I love helping people transform. I love seeing the process of people changing their lives. I love people going through challenges, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, and coming out on the other side. And I feel that this wonderful young lady has done just that in her life. And I'm already just vibing off the energy. I think this is going to be a great one. Ruby Fremon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for having me.
And did I just say Fremon or is it?
Yeah, Fremon.
That's how I said it, right?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
You did.
All right, beautiful. So I'm excited because there's like a depth to you, and I feel it. And just so the listeners know, you know, this is something that once you do the work, you can literally sense people's energy. You could sense, I can almost literally like see what you've been through. I could see your life. And so when you sit here, I'm excited about what's to come for everybody, you know? And I think that it's a beautiful testimony of the work you've done, the work that I've done, and the fact that you went through exactly what you went through to get you here, and yet I've never met you. So is this already resonating with you? Yeah, we've never met, we've never spoken, like the team set this up. So tell me a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Of course. So I am a leadership coach, mentor, speaker, podcast host, author, and I really specialize in helping leaders cultivate healthy relationships with their traumas so they can show up and lead with absolute integrity, which I feel is completely lost in the space of personal, spiritual, and leadership development these days.
I cannot agree more. And it's so interesting. The other day I was on a call with some of my people and I said the words like, you know, so many leaders and, you know, influencers, so forth and so on. I feel like many people step into this space because they have a wound inside of them that needs attention, that needs validation, that wants to feel power, that wants to feel acknowledged. And yet, when they haven't done the work themselves, it's like you're leading people into nothingness, you know? Would you agree?
Yeah. So I call this trauma projection, which is happening in the space of leadership. And we see it in all realms. We see it in personal development. We see it in the plant medicine space. We see it in corporate America. It's everywhere. And there is an increase in that nowadays because we live in the digital era. We are living in the era where literally anyone can be anything, and all it takes is a quick update of their IG bio. You can claim the title of anything you want. You can claim to be a leader. You can claim to be a master coach. You can claim to be whatever it is that you want to be, and then have perfect branding and perfect positioning, and all of a sudden you are this person. And so we have this society of people performing and pretending and wearing masks, all to fulfill some wound within themselves, right?
Preach.
Right. And I will continue preaching, just so you know.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone wants power, no matter who you are. You can deny it, but everyone loves that feeling because that feeling of power offers you a feeling of significance. And deep down inside, that's what we're all craving, is to feel significant, to feel important, to feel loved, accepted, like we belong somewhere. And so we are now seeing the distortion of that projected into our fields, with people leading from their wounds versus leading from their presence and the work that they've actually done.
Yeah, it's so funny, but before we even started filming, when you said I help leaders reconnect with their true selves and, you know, work through their trauma so that they can help other people do the same. The first thing I said was, then that means that you've worked through your own trauma, you know, because that's a very bold statement, you know, and I feel like this comes up a lot. This comes up on Instagram. This comes up in Q&As that we have. It's like everyone wants to be a life coach, you know, and everyone wants to get certified to be a life coach, you know. And what I tell people when they ask me, like, how do I get, I literally had this message come through the other day, where do I go to get certified to be a life coach? And my answer was life. Life, you know, no one certifies you. No one needs to like bless you that you're ready to teach or help people. The only way to actually teach other people is to go through it yourself, right? And I'm not talking a course. I'm talking to go through some of the work that you need to do within yourself and then come out on the other side. And if you're called to, right, be able to share what that work looks like so that other people can also do that work. But I feel that what's missing is most of the people out there doing this work are trying to lead people to them instead of the true work is leading people back into themselves. Would you agree?
So I'm going to disagree with the certification and the life, because you can have someone who has been to hell and back again. And they have experienced so many traumas. They've come out the other side, but they actually don't know how to hold space for people in their own transformations. And they will end up leading from a place of internal projection. But then you can also have a certified coach who goes through all the certifications, who does all the programs, who does NLP, whatever it is. And they may not have the life experience to have a deeper sense of compassion and empathy that can be brought into the relationship, so it feels very dry and formal. I believe that there is space for both. I think one of the myths that is thrown around a lot in the life coaching space is like, you just have to go through life and you can then teach people how to get to where you're at. And that's incorrect. I've met a lot of people who don't know how to hold space for others, even though they've done it for themselves. Because to be able to serve someone in that capacity, that in itself is another skill set that we can learn, that we can train ourselves to do. So for me, holding space, like I have been doing this since 2014. I've been coaching for a long time. And every time I get a new client, every time I'm in a new session, my work is refined that much more. The key is to make it about them. This has nothing to do with you. And not everyone is at a place to operate from that state.
Which state?
The state of service, deep service to the other.
For sure.
Right? Not deep service to yourself, not to prove that your coaching works, not to prove that your programs work, not to prove that you are some sort of high esteemed master coach, but to really just be in it with your clients and want the best for them and help them uncover what that is for them. Not your projection of what you think is best for them, but what is actually best for them.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting what you just brought up because, you know, so I'm going to disagree with you only because it's been true in my life. Yet what I just learned was that because it's been true in my life doesn't mean that it's true in someone else's life. And that's the difference, you know, because when I look back on my journey, now, heck, it has been a lot of trial and error. So I did go through like my own sort of life certification, but I do see how someone else who maybe has the desire to help people and maybe they are ready and then maybe they did do the work, they just don't know how to get to the framework to be able to hold space. And that's where it would be very valuable for somebody else, you know?
Like they don't have the tools.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Or even the capacity, the training ground. Because I'm realizing as we're speaking, for me, the training ground was my company, my business. Like I learned how to coach people. Back then it was from my ego, but still like I learned how to coach people, right? And then through ceremony, you know, I learned how to hold space for people. For a while, it was from my ego, but then I went through the lessons that I had to go through. And I want to talk to you about ceremony. And this is a big one for me because particularly with plant medicine, you know, I know of a case right now, and I know of several cases right now, and I'm really curious to hear your opinion, but I feel like plant medicine is what it is, and yet so much of people's trauma, right, and their energy, when they have not resolved it within themselves, comes out in the ceremony, and there's a situation right now that I know of that it's a little difficult because I feel like people are in the right heart and in the right space. But for some folks, once they get to a place where they maybe taste what a ceremony is like, they immediately rush into hosting ceremonies for other people. And yet there is still unresolved trauma within them that can show up in ceremony. What are your thoughts about just plant ceremonies in general, and also being careful with who is able to hold that space for you? Hey, I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, man, it's time for me to transform my life. It's time for me to change some things about myself, or it's time for me to heal that thing that keeps stopping me from abundance. I want you to have the courage to join us at Awaken December 1st through 3rd here in Austin, Texas. Go to DannyMorel.com/awaken now and reserve your seats today.
So I'm going to preface this with saying that I am highly opinionated when it comes to plant medicine.
Okay.
I'm a devotee to the plant medicine space. I've been working with plant medicine since the end of 2018, and I sit in a very traditional way in the Shipibo lineage. Now, there's a lot to say with plant medicine, and I'll start with this. The one thing people need to understand is when you sit with a medicine like ayahuasca, she opens your field to be present to the realms that are all around us at all times that we don't see. And there is a true realm of good and evil. And we open ourselves up to seeing that, to being in it. What she does is she works with us to bring a lot of stuff to the surface that perhaps we have built so many protective mechanisms around that we can't access on our own. When you're in a plant medicine ceremony, we hear a lot of the stories of there's this massive transformation that takes place. You leave a different person. And in my personal experience, it takes work. This is a co-created experience with grandmother medicine. So when I sit in ceremony, I'm not sitting there to just receive from her. I am sitting there to work with her. And that requires effort. That requires a devotion to the process and not just the end result.
And a surrendering.
Yes, and allowing, just allowing her to work. And there, there's different medicines, and I've dieted a lot. I just went on my second dieta into the Amazon jungle with my teacher in May of this year. So I've done a lot of diets, and I've also sat in plant medicine circles that don't really hold the medicine with integrity. So in traditional South American culture, especially the Peruvian culture, there's something called bruja, which is the dark side, shall we call it, of plant medicine. And any trained maestro or maestra can go into the dark side. It's the evil and the good and evil. And they get drawn to that. And then that's when you have the maestras, as we know it, shamans, who are practicing the darker magic in the plant medicine space. This happens in our American culture as well, because plant medicine, like ayahuasca, it feels very powerful to be able to, quote unquote, give someone a transformation, but you are not giving them anything. Grandmother is working with them. They create their results. You are simply the servant to that medicine. And it actually takes a lot of training. My maestro in Peru, he's now in his 70s and he's been drinking since he was 12. And there's a massive initiation. And in Shipibo culture, The maestros in their 70s, they are the ones they've reached. That's when they are the strongest. So to see how plant medicine is being treated now outside of the jungle, to me, I get excited that she's reaching more people. But at the same time, I don't like the way that she's being served and abused. And I feel that there is a need to come back to the actual roots of plant medicine and treat plant medicine with the reverence that it deserves.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to bring up two things. I had my first shaman. He was an Englishman, and he was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But he didn't follow the typical South American Peruvian traditions. And so I'll never forget this. This literally happened on my very first ceremony, right? So you have this traditional Englishman, like literally from like the UK, you know, and here he is, he opens up his laptop, you know, and he starts like a DJ, and he starts playing his music, so forth and so on, which we both know that in the traditional culture is the Icaros, right? It's completely different. And yet he doesn't know how to play Icaros, you know, and so he does the best that he can do. Well, I was brand new. I had never done plant medicine before. And the second day, the woman shaman who had came to kind of support, but wasn't the head shaman, who was Peruvian, so forth and so on, you know, was basically saying, I can't be a part of this. I can't be a part of this because this is not the traditional way of doing things. Mm-hmm. Now I understand. Mm-hmm. I completely understand. To make a long story short, she ended up sitting in the ceremony. But I was having this conversation the other day. Probably the happiest moment of my life. This is my 6th sit with the medicine. And it happens to be a day ceremony, which is another thing that you don't do in the normal traditional, you know, sense of holding space and sharing the medicine. It happens to be a day ceremony, which happened to be my favorite, but I get it. And my shaman, at the end of the ceremony, before closing the ceremony, plays 3 songs. They were literally songs that everyone listening to us right now knows. And we get up and we're still under the medicine and we are dancing and we are laughing and we are singing and it was pure bliss because you know the feeling, right? So you know you're in this space where it was just pure joy and pure happiness. And at the end, it was to the point, you know, where if my friends are listening, will remember this. It was to the point, there were about 25 of us or so. It was to the point where we were like, we want more. You know, it's just this beautiful moment. And I personally had never experienced so much joy, you know, and for me, even though it wasn't in the traditional sense, the way of holding space, like I value it and I remember it because I know it wasn't at night. I know it was during the day. I know it was with songs that weren't Icaros, but like that moment brought me so much joy. Like I get emotional just thinking about it because for me, I struggle with having fun. I struggle with letting loose, you know? Just your thoughts. Just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think that's a beautiful experience. And where I draw caution with plant medicine is that it takes a very gifted, masterful maestra to be able to work through the energies that come up. We don't know really who's carrying an entity until we get into that space. We don't know what traumas have been packed deep down inside. We aren't even often aware of our own. So anything can come up in ceremony. And I've been in plenty of ceremonies where it's joy and it's bliss. There's no trauma. It's great. I've also been in plenty of ceremonies where there are entities, where there are are actual like scary fucking shit happening.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for our maestros to be able to clear that
all hell
and
would break
understand
loose.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous because these are the entities that can then jump onto other people. So you have to understand how to hold that. So I also don't judge people. Whatever works for you works for you. You know, it's kind of like what I say with sobriety. AA didn't work for me. I do it my own way. So if you're called to doing plant medicine that comes in the form of capsules, it comes in the form of like daytime use, cool, whatever. I prefer sitting in a very strict Shipibo manner. And that also was new to me. It wasn't until 2019, after I'd sat with her a lot, that I went to the Amazon. And I don't mean to a center. I mean rural Amazon in the middle of nowhere.
No lights,
no electricity, spiders the size of your hand, living in a tombo, a moldy mattress on the ground. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. That was my first Shipibo sit. And it was so scary to sit in the pitch black. It was so scary to just be with yourself and whatever comes up. But as soon as my maestro started chanting, that's when I knew I am home. This is the deep work that I want to devote myself to. And so from that day forward, I've never sat in a different style. I prefer in Shipibo. So it's like what I say about sobriety. Like, you have to find your own path. And if you're called to do it differently, then explore. I think that every one of us has a right to do that. And it's important to find the way that really works for you, that calls you in, that really supports you and not just holds you in that light, high vibration, but can bring you into the deepest depths of your trauma.
Right. Because that's where you heal.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And so for somebody, because I want to learn about your story, because you've said sobriety a couple times, so we're going to get there. But if somebody out there is listening and they've been devoted listeners to this show, and they've seen my transformation, maybe they've seen your transformation, maybe they've seen other people transform through the use of plant medicine. What are some of the basics? They've never done it before. They're thinking about it. If you could go back in time and you could say, okay, guys, like step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever it is that comes up for you, what are some of the basics that you think could help people maybe prepare, decide if plant medicine, specifically, grandmother ayahuasca is right for them?
Yeah. Because plant medicine represents a lot of different things. So if it's a grandmother, I highly encourage you to wait until she really calls you in. Like, you'll get to a point when you cannot deny that this is what you want to do. She's going to come full force into your peripheral, into your life. She will just show up in the most divine ways. When you're looking for someone to sit with, due diligence is key. Don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. How long have you been serving? What lineage do you serve? Where do you source your medicine? Were you granted permission from a lineage to serve? How many people do you serve in one ceremony? That's really key. Because you don't want to be in a room with too many people, especially if it's your first time. It's a lot harder to be with your own energies, and it can be really, really overwhelming. So seek out a more intimate space. And as for personal prep, be prepared to allow as much as possible and know that it's going to get messy, and that's okay. Yeah. Because the mess is where we really get in touch with our innermost truths.
Yeah. I get this all the time. People say, but I hear you throw up, and I go, yeah, and that's the greatest thing you could wish for, because, if you're out there listening, when you're throwing up, you're purging, you're releasing, and I have been taught, and what I decided to do is, instead of like holding back from the purge, like I go into it. And I say, you'll know when this happens, and you know exactly what I mean. You know what you're purging. So you actually, kind of participate in it. And in your mind, you say, out fear, out jealousy, out unforgiveness, out shame, out guilt, or whatever the case may be. And so, if you're out there listening right now, the purge is what you should actually kind of like hope for. Some people do, some people don't. You know, I know people who spend hours purging, and I know people who've sat in ceremony for 3 times and haven't purged yet. But I just want everybody out there listening that if they're scared of that, don't be, because that's where you get to heal. You know, your thoughts?
Yeah. The purge can come north or south or both,
or both,
and at the same time.
Yeah.
Just letting you know. Okay. I am someone who doesn't purge every ceremony. There's, you know, I've actually been studying this and seeing like what kind of health stuff gets in the way of purges, because there are different reflexes that we need in our own body's mechanism to be able to purge. But you can also purge in other ways, sweats, emotional purges. I've had ceremonies where I will literally cry for 8 hours straight, just tears. Those are often some of my favorite purges, because it feels like I can reach those depths of myself that I haven't been allowing myself to reach. So just be prepared for purging and know that it's going to come out the way that your spirit needs to release it. It doesn't have to look like purge in a bucket. It can look like a lot of different things.
I shake.
But yes, that happens too. What matters is that you just allow it to happen.
Beautiful. Fantastic. I can't help but notice all the kambô dots.
Yeah, I'm a kambô practitioner.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I help people purge for a living.
Yeah. Do you know my friend Daniela?
Daniela, short hair.
No, long hair.
No.
Plays the music. No?
No.
I'll introduce you guys. She's wonderful. Do you want to talk about kambô at all?
We can talk about kambô.
Yeah. I sat with it once. And for me, what I will say is that it was powerful. It was powerful because to me, what I experienced was a reset. And I remember my friend Daniela told me, like, she says, you know, what I find is a lot of men end up passing out, at least for a second, like a 2-second, you know, whatever the case may be. And it's a 25 minute process. And all I remember is I was literally purging out of north and south at the same time. And I'm walking back with my bucket, and next thing you know, I was over here with my bucket, and next thing you know, I'm laying down over there with my bucket. So it was like this complete energetic reset, right? And what I noticed afterwards was people that were in my life that no longer vibrated at the frequency that I was at after that ceremony started to just go away. You know, and that's what I experienced. If somebody is considering kambô, why would they consider it? You know, what's it like? Just whatever your thoughts.
Yeah, I want to start with what you said about the people in your life, because that's really interesting. So traditionally, kambô in the Amazon was used by hunters. So the hunters would go out for days, maybe weeks, to hunt for food for their villages. So they would apply kambô to give them the strength, the endurance, to decrease their appetite, and to offer themselves clear vision to see. And when I say to see, both in the 3D realm and the 5D realm, they'd be able to foresee where certain animals were going to be. And it gave them the focus and the drive to do that. So kambô is the original peptide injection. So now peptide injections are like this huge rage in the wellness space, but that's what kambô is it's literally a cocktail of bioactive peptides. And bioactive peptides work to tell your cells how to communicate with one another. They awaken dormant cells. And as we age, as we're exposed to the toxins in our world, dis-ease in our mind, body, spirit, our cells start to break down. They start to slow down. They don't operate how they're meant to operate, which then creates dis-ease in all of our systems, mind, body, and spirit. Unlike ayahuasca and other psychedelics, which work from the outside in, they go spirit, then emotional, mental, and physical. Kambô goes physical first. So it really works on the physical vessel, which then helps to release emotions, mental states, and then you can also have like a spiritual experience with kambô. So kambô is really a medicine that she's so special to me. changed my life, healed me from things Western medicine said it couldn't heal ever. But it brings your body, mind, and spirit back to a state of homeostasis. It's how you're meant to function. And for many of us, we don't actually understand how much dis-ease is present in our vessels and in our minds and in our spirits until we start to realize how good it feels to be otherwise. And that's what kambô does.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about fibromyalgia. I have seen the medicine heal people from so many different things. Talk to us about fibromyalgia, how that illness came, how you were healed from it. Take us on that journey.
So in my early 20s, I experienced a really, the heaviest, deepest wound of my life, and it's my incarnation wound. And that was when I had one of my brothers stopped talking to me, and my whole family actually took his side and no one listened to me. And so I was in this position of feeling deeply misunderstood, having a lot of lies being told about me, no one believing me, and everyone kind of pushing me away. And that led me down a very, very dark path. I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorder, PTSD, fibromyalgia, and rheumatoid arthritis at the age of around 21, 22.
Oof, that's young.
Yeah. Depression and anxiety had been a part of my life on and off since I was 11, but all the other things were new. And the fibro was so bad that there were many days that I couldn't even get out of bed, not emotionally, physically. You could just lightly touch my arm and it felt like a million knives on my skin.
Wow.
It was so inflamed. I saw a lot of different specialists, and I was put on a lot of prescriptions at a very young age, 5 different prescriptions. Each one had their own side effects, and none of them were making me better. They were all just making me numb out. And then I became addicted to benzos.
Oh, so you actually became addicted to the, wow.
Yeah. And I experienced my first suicide attempt from the benzos. Back then, no one ever questioned how often you were getting prescriptions refilled. That was a long time ago. And when I came to and realized it didn't work and realized I was in a marriage that wasn't working, I said to myself, I don't know what I want. All I know is I don't want this. And so I sought out holistic support. And that was like 18, 19 years ago that I started seeing naturopaths instead of regular physicians, weaned off prescriptions, realized that fibromyalgia, and a lot of people are going to get mad at me who are listening, who may have this, because I used to get mad at people when they would tell me this. But a big part of fibromyalgia, in fact, the whole basis for it to come into your system is the emotional body. When you are in a place of complete emotional destruction, of course your body is going to react and your nervous system starts to work against you. So often fibromyalgia will come with PTSD or alongside of it or after. It can come with people who are really depressed, people who are really anxious. So for me, it was 1, weaning off of all those drugs, 2, starting to really eat to nourish my body and what it really needed, and 3, to really start addressing what was going on a spiritual, mental, emotional level.
Which was the underlying root cause.
Yes.
And I know this is going to be difficult for people to hear. And I'm going to say this gently, because for a lot of people who are, in the system per se, they're so trusting. And they're so trusting of today's medical doctors and the institution of medicine. And if you're a doctor and you're listening, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that, our doctors don't really learn about nutrition. They don't really learn about emotional health. They just learn about prescriptions. It's the most profitable thing for the system to teach, And as a result, we have people who are so trusting in it, right? Because that's just the way the world works. I have seen through the work that I've been able to do, whether it's through meditation or breath work or plant medicine, people literally be healed, right? I've seen women who at 45 were on a cane and on 40 pills be off a cane and be off of pills. I've seen my brother who, I don't even know the name of the disease, but he had a stunt in his chest. He would inflame, and 3 times a year he'd be in the hospital. The mushrooms helped him, you know? And here you are saying the same exact thing. And so I have come to the conclusion by myself, from my real life experience, no one has told me, I can just see it, that if you heal the emotion and if you heal the thoughts and the feelings about self, the body then follows. Would you agree?
1,000%.
Yeah.
I'm a walking testament to that.
Yeah.
Everything I've ever been diagnosed with.
Because you're glowing, by the way.
Thank you.
You look healthy. You look
Thank
wonderful. And in my own life, I used to be 50 pounds overweight, and I feel younger and better than ever. So if someone's out there, right, and they're afraid, and they have to be afraid, and I'm going to say this gently because fear is an emotion, right? And they're afraid of change. Part of that fear is what's causing the body to be inflamed, right? What would be your first couple of steps for somebody that says, oh my God, like, I don't know what I want, but I want to be healed, you know?
Yeah. First, I would say it's okay that you know, if you're in the medical system, that you're there, because we have been trained as a society to trust the authorities. And we're going to trust until we have a reason to not trust, just like I did. You know, I had a reason to trust, and then I had a reason to not trust. And then once I had that reason to not trust, that's when I started questioning everything. So you have to look at what you're currently doing and ask yourself, is this working? If the answer is no, great. That's a good awareness to begin with. Are you willing to try something that you haven't tried before? And it always, to me, it comes down to the basics. How are you fueling your body? How are you moving your body? How are you taking care of your body? Right? Food you eat, the movements you take in every single day. And then, you know, are you resting? Are you taking care of your vessel? Are you honoring the vessel that is housing your soul? Like, it's really important to honor that. Because, and especially in the work that I do with kambô, so many people are so disassociated from their bodies. Like, we have a society of people who are disconnected, disassociated from their bodies, who don't want to be in their bodies, who actually deeply resent their bodies. But the malfunction that's currently taking place in your body is due to the malfunction and the dis-ease in your emotional, spiritual, mental self. So to look at your vessel with deep reverence, with love, and to devote yourself to establishing a healthy relationship with the body, and then looking at what's that going to take? What's it actually going to take for me to create this healthier relationship with and to my body?
I love that. So let's take people down this path, right? And I'll put it to you this way. So you have fibromyalgia. You're on a bunch of pills, right? You're depressed. You're anxious. What did that look like for you? What did that journey of healing yourself look like for you?
One, it looked like understanding what wasn't working.
Okay, so what wasn't working?
The pills.
The pills. Okay.
You know, Western medicine.
Got it.
It took a suicide attempt for me to really look at that, you know, to look at, okay, well, why do they keep prescribing me these pills that I shouldn't be abusing in this way? And no one's asking me any questions.
Right.
It took the desire to want to know why I was experiencing all of these things. I didn't just want to treat the symptoms. I needed to know why I was experiencing all of these things at such a young age. Why am I struggling with all of these things? I shouldn't be struggling. So what is actually lying beneath this? And I want to say that this journey that started with my health around the age of 22, 23, this became my lifelong path of healing. It wasn't that I just, you know, devoted myself to it for a year and ta-da, I'm healed. I see life as a journey of healing. But for me personally, it looked like getting back in touch with the roots of what my body truly needed and understanding that and cultivating a healthy relationship as you would with any other human being with my body. Learning to listen, like this doesn't feel good, but this feels good. Things as simple as rest. Like most people do not sleep enough. I honor my sleep. I will say no to events because I have a bedtime.
Yes.
You know, it's so important to cultivate that relationship with your bodies, just like you would cultivate a relationship with your partner. So that time really was the beginning of me getting into a relationship with my body, learning to love it, learning what it needs to operate in a way that feels good. And a lot of that is trial and error. A lot of that is like trying something. Oh, that didn't feel good. Okay, let me try this. Oh, that feels even better. So that is the journey. And it's one that once you devote yourself to, you will notice it may look different for you than it looks for me or for Danny. Like we all have the things that work for us and the things that don't. But that's the beauty of the relationship, right? It's like any other relationship with any other human being. You learn as you go. You learn that dance and how to create harmony and balance. And you get to do that with yourself for yourself. So the journey that began at that time when I was 22, 23 is still taking place to this day. And at this stage of my health journey, it's now become about optimization, refinement, because I believe that every day that we are alive, every day that we live is another day that we can accumulate a new wound, a new trauma, a new dis-ease in our bodies, minds, or spirits. So to me, the journey is healing. Yeah. It's what we do every single day.
I love that. And it's ongoing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we see ourselves as, broken or sick individuals. This is just the path that I choose to devote myself to. I'm on a journey to heal. I'm on a journey to be as healthy as possible, to be my most optimized self, to be so in touch with God and spirit that that's what runs my life.
I love that. Would you agree when you were speaking, the word love kept coming to me, because you have to love yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to love your body. And if you truly start to love yourself or allow yourself to love yourself, then that fuels the fuel that you give to yourself, the food that you eat, the way you move your body. And I want to talk to you about that. And, what works for you may not work for other people. But, for some people out there, they don't even know where to start, mm-hmm. right? So like, for me, being vegan works for me, mm-hmm. right? I do understand that for some people, it doesn't work. In sitting with Mother Ayahuasca, that's what came to me, right? Eating organic foods, it's very important to me. Drinking a lot of water is very important to me. I have now found fasting. Mm-hmm. Or for some people, like they don't fast and they look and feel great. And for me, it's like when I don't fast, like it's just not the same for mm-hmm. me, and it keeps my mind sharp and it keeps me full of energy. So that's like my system, mm-hmm. right? So when it comes to fuel, what works for you?
I've done it all. So I look at our vessels as we go through seasons in life. So I was in a big fasting season for about 4 years. It wasn't until this year that I actually stopped fasting. But I was doing upwards of 5-day water fasts. I was doing 1 24-hour fast every week, and then doing my intermittent fasting. Very consistent with that. And in this season of my life, I realized I actually need a bit more nourishment. So I've gotten to a point with my body where I learned to listen. I think that a lot of the times people will push. For example, fasting. If you're a woman and you're fasting, there are different windows that are going to work better for you than, if you're a man. We just have different hormones. So you have to listen to how your body is responding to something. I've also been plant-based on and off since I was 10 years old. And I go through seasons.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll go through seasons. I'll go through maybe 3 years of plant-based and then start eating meat again. And this year is the first year in 30 years that I've eaten red meat.
Oh.
30 years since I had a steak. 30.
Wow.
It started last year when we were at our cabin in Montana and we went out to eat and there was like elk on the menu and bison. And I was like, bison sounds really good.
Really?
And then I had bison and I was like, my body was just like, whew, that felt amazing.
Yeah.
And so that transformed into more game meats. And then this year I eat steak and I love it. And my body's super, super happy. But I also, again, understand that we go through seasons. So seasons, when I say seasons, I mean like if you're in a high stress season, your body's going to respond differently. You're going to be more inflamed. So you will flare up more to different things. When you're going through times of deep grief, you're going to actually need a little more nourishment to ground your energy. So it's really important to just not force something to work and instead to listen. I mean, I partake in plant medicine a lot. I've sat with grandmother a lot. And in my last dieta in the jungle, I was eating meat because she was like, you need to eat some meat. And they would cook me meat. So
this is blowing my mind right now. This is good. This is good. Yeah.
Again, listen, I think the problem happens, and I used to be here, is when we identify with a label.
Sure.
So it's easy to identify as vegan. It's easy to identify as plant-based or keto or what is it, carnivore? Like that's a thing.
Right.
It's so easy to identify with that you become restricted and you stop listening to your body and you start abiding by this identity. And we do this in all different ways, but with food, we do this. And you got to just throw those identities out the window and trust the divine guidance and intelligence of your body's wisdom, because it will tell you. Like when you sat with kambô, this happens for a lot of people, not everyone, but did you notice anything shift in what you were craving afterwards?
I mean, I noticed what I no longer crave.
Right.
Like sugar, cookies, my go-to bullshit. I did notice that. Yeah.
And you listened.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So that's the important thing. Whereas some people will do it. Like people will sit with kambô, for example, and it's really normal to have a shift in your diet afterwards because the things you once liked, your body's all of a sudden telling you, no, don't do that. But then you can still do it. You can still reach for that cup of coffee with like 5 spoons of sugar because that's just your habit and you're so scared of breaking your habit. And that doesn't allow your body to go through the repatterning process that it needs to go through. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. Just listen to your body. Trust the divine intelligence.
I'm over here. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm burping. I'm shaking. There's a lot going on right now. Are you watching this?
Yes,
I'm like, bleh, bleh, right?
He's purging.
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm not farting right now. But this, and if you're listening, this is what purging is like, because I'm going to ask you, I'm going to be literally a student here. So I've got 2 questions for you. Question number 1, I'm going to admit something. Mm-hmm. Like, I am a devoted vegan, mm-hmm. and yet I love feeling strong. Mm-hmm. Part of what helps me feel the way I feel, I fast 23 hours. Mm-hmm. I eat within a 1-hour window. I break my fast with an elixir, a concoction of supplements, mm-hmm. right? I am not going to lie. I have had Mother Ayahuasca in my house, and when I go to get my supplements, she goes, "That's quite a lot of mm-hmm. supplements, isn't it?" And then it just leaves, right? And then there are moments where it's like I'm lifting heavy, and it's like a piece of fish right now would be, sounds pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a piece of fish with some rice, so forth and so on. And yet I think of like life. Mm-hmm. I think of my dog. I think of animals, the sanctity of life, and what the animals must go through. And so for me, I appreciate what you said about labels. It's not that, like, it's truly like, I love life and I want to honor life, mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious on your take on this, right?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, both the vegan side and then the supplement side.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I've spent a lot of time down these rabbit holes.
Okay, cool.
And, you know, veganism isn't that great either because there's a lot of unethical things that happen with farming when it comes to plant-based foods, as is with meat, you know? And at this stage in my life, I know enough about meat. Like, I don't buy my meat at a supermarket. I get it delivered from the farm.
Yeah.
It's humanely raised, you know, pasture raised. I literally notice a difference if I have an egg from the store versus an egg from the farm. I will notice a difference immediately. And if you go back, like even think about when I'm in the jungle in Peru, are they vegan? Hell no, right? They eat the fish from the river. They raise their chickens. They have eggs. You know, they eat. I mean, they even eat monkeys, which is really sad for us. It's hard to go into the jungle and witness something like that, but this is how they've been living for generations, right? So it's important to keep that in mind. It's good to have moral principles, but it's also good to have those moral principles and tune in with your body and what it really needs. Right. So I work out a lot. I love working out. I'm currently on a 3-week break, which sucks because of my lower back. However, I love working out. And in 2020, for example, that was probably the biggest fasting year of my life. Fasting a lot, many 3-day juice fasts, 5-day water fasts, regular 24-hour fasts. And I was working out 3 days a week with my trainer on the beach at 5 a.m. Now I work out and my body looks totally different. I'm able to actually lift more. I have way more endurance. I thought I was the strongest I ever was in 2020, but my body is responding differently this year because I am fueling it differently.
The meat.
Right. And there's no good or bad. Like, I like the way I looked in 2020. I was really strong. I was really fast. It's just different. And at this, where I'm at right now, this feels good. This feels good. So it's important, as much as we think we're not identifying with labels, sometimes we do. And it is important to have reverence for the conscious sentient beings that we are ingesting.
Consuming, right.
And there are ways to do that. You know, shop smarter, buy local, show reverence to the animal before you eat it.
Praying.
Right. Yeah. There are ceremonial aspects to how you eat and how you really respect what you put into your body, whether it's a plant or whether it's an animal. Gotcha. Yeah.
By the way, I want the team to include clips of me shaking and burping and like I was holding in a fart right now. I'm not gonna lie, and I want them to, because I want people to see like this is what purging is like, because I want you guys to picture this. If you're listening, it's like you have these deep rooted thoughts and beliefs, right? And they're like in you, and you are energy. So essentially that's energy within you that is being trapped, that is being stored. And so while you're talking, I'm like having major heart palpitations, right? I'm like, holy shit, like my paradigm is being challenged right now. The beauty is, and this is my challenge for everybody, is, are you open? You know, because like in all of life, if you're not open, if you're so rigid that the only way you're going to do it is like this, can you truly grow? Can you truly evolve? So like, if there's anything I'm proud of, is that I am open, even with something like this, you know, I'm going to sit with it. But yet there is obviously something here for me because of the reaction that I'm having to it, you know, and that's where you get to be aware, you know? And so thank you for that. And so the next part is the supplements. What are your thoughts about supplements?
I take a lot of supplements, but there are definitely better supplements out there than others, because a lot of them are cut with crap.
Yeah.
And even the coating that they're in is just crap. I don't buy my supplements from the drugstore. I buy high quality, higher priced supplements, but I only take what I feel my body needs. You know, there was a time when I was getting regular vitamin B shots because I was so deprived on vitamin B. And now I have an abundance, so I don't need to take vitamin B. I'm good. So you have to just test out and listen to your body. I'm big on minerals. I think most people don't have enough minerals in their bodies. So really big on making sure that you have a harmony of supplements that are vitamins and minerals. Got it. And then the closest source to earth as you can get is what usually my rule is. Like, you don't want to take things that are too synthetic. And then the other part of my supplements is also I take regular detoxifying supplements like chlorella. So I have a very common gene mutation, which is, I call it the motherfucker gene mutation because it's the MTHFR gene mutation. Many human beings have this, but it means that your body detoxes slower than the average human being.
Oh, wow.
Simply put, there's a lot of other things, but, and you have to take like methylated vitamins instead of regular. So I take regular chlorella. I am very aware of the toxins in environments, and you can clean your house of toxins as much as you want, but they're everywhere. Yeah. Right? You step outside, they're everywhere. So I like to make sure that I have a baseline level of continuous detoxification, so I don't have to do these harsh detoxes every year. And yeah, I think supplements are great as long as you are not over supplementing yourself, because a lot of the stuff you can get from foods, but when you're fasting so much, you're getting less. Right. Got it. So you just got to listen.
I love it. I love it. And so that was fuel, right? Mm-hmm. How about move?
Yeah. Movement. I am obsessed with movement. It was 2012, and that was I hovered at rock bottom my entire life, but 2012, I like really, really, really hit it. And I had ended a very abusive relationship. I was an addict, didn't know I was an addict. And when I hit that bottom, when I ended the relationship, I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize who I was looking at. I really didn't. And it was such a weird experience to look in the mirror and I'm just tears running down my face, and I just kicked him out and realized how shitty this relationship was and how much betrayal there was on all levels. And I look in the mirror and I don't know who I'm looking at. Like, who is this broken looking girl looking back at me? At this point, I'm still in the thick of the family drama, with a lot of family having distanced themselves from me. I felt like I didn't have a lot of support. I was an addict but didn't know it. I didn't know it because I worked in nightlife, and that was just our life.
It's just what
It's just what we did. But I knew I didn't want that anymore. I knew I didn't want to feel what I was feeling in that moment. But I was in such a hopeless, broken down state. No self-worth, no self-love, no self-respect, feeling like everyone is against me. Because when your family's against you, you feel like everyone's against you. So it was hard for me to envision what I did want. So I made a goal to do the opposite of everything that I normally do, because that was the only thing I could make sense of. Like, if I normally say yes to this, I'm going to say no. So from going out, I worked in nightlife, so I worked about 4 nights a week, and then during the days I worked at the club during the daytime. But I would also then go out like 6 nights a week or party. So I swapped that out. 2 nights is what I said. I was like, I'm going to swap out 2 nights. I can agree to 2 nights, baby steps.
Start slow. Yeah.
Start slow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to swap out the club for hot yoga in the gym. So I committed in 2012, and I started doing 2 weeks, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I remember this. I'd get off work, I'd hit the gym in my building, and then I'd go to hot yoga. And then I'd have a nice quiet night at home. That helped me get in touch with what my body was capable of achieving. I had never tested my body in that way before, especially hot yoga. Brand new to yoga, and I go and start with hot yoga. Like,
if you're going to do it, do it. Right.
Often I'd be crying. My body would be shaking. I was like, why is it so fucking hot? This is terrible. What am I doing? But I'd end up in tears, and it felt really good.
I want to hug you right now because I love transformation.
Yeah.
So like when you said I committed, like my face lit up, and it's like, yes.
Yeah. And it's like the baby steps, right? And I always say the body is the easiest way to go, because once you start to feel good in your body, then you start to crave wanting to feel good in your mind, in your spirit, in your emotional body. since I was working out so much and that was new, I decided I also wanted to eat a little better. So I started shifting the way I ate. Not going out every night also helped. I was still an addict at that time. However, I was starting to learn how to take care of myself and my body. And that was when my appreciation for physical movement began. Because I realized, for example, in hot yoga, there were many poses I could not hold. This was so new to me. But then I realized after weeks of doing it, I could start to hold the poses. Wow, the body is amazing, and I can sit there and I can tell myself I can't do this. And then I'm doing it and I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing this. So it taught me that we can achieve anything. I always say strong body, strong mind, strong mind, strong body. Because when we teach ourselves how strong our body is, we start to learn the capacity of our minds and vice versa. That's where my love for movement began. And it was also important for me to experiment with what type of movement felt best for my body. At that time, yoga and the gym worked really well together because the gym allowed me to lift heavy and work on stress and all the pent up emotions in that way. And the yoga really helped me get in touch with my body, which felt really good.
I love that.
And now it's a lot of I work out really hard. I love to push myself. I have performance-based goals, not physical goals. Right now I have a performance-based goal of doing 10 unassisted pull-ups. God, just help me get to 10 unassisted pull-ups. No bands, just unassisted.
That's badass though.
Right.
That's badass.
And then I 36-inch box because I'm at a 33-inch box. I got 3 more inches. Yes.
Good for you.
So it's a way to challenge myself. And like I said earlier, the physical body is a gateway to all these other things. And most people, I don't know if you've seen this in your work, but a lot of people who end up in personal development come this way because they started working on their physical bodies first, probably for an aesthetic or health reason, and then realize oh shit, my body feels good. I wonder how good my mind could feel.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we did everything. We went plant medicine. We went healing the body. We went, food. We went movement. If you were to kind of wrap it up, for a human being that is out there that wants to heal, whether it's an illness, whether it's a thought, whether it's their soul, their heart, whether it's, they're listening to you and they're watching the show right now and they're thinking oh my God, I could do the same thing. I could change my life, right? Through healing. What would be final thoughts for somebody like that?
Well, the first thing is if you have the awareness that you want to heal, that is the most potent place to begin, is having that awareness and really listening. And then asking yourself, what would it look like? What would this path to healing look like for you? And finding support, whatever that looks like, your teachers, your mentors, the foods you eat, the people who guide you, just knowing that you don't have to do this alone alleviates a lot of the pressure that we as human beings put on ourselves, because this isn't about achieving a transformation or creating change. This is about you just bettering yourself and cultivating a deeper relationship to self, which is where everything begins.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm going to end it with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm ready for steak yet, but this was good for me.
I mean, maybe bison.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That's a lot.
Oh,
yeah.
So good.
I'll take it. Baby
That
steps.
was my gateway to red steps. Meat.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of The Higher Self. If you know someone out there that you love that maybe is struggling with illness, maybe is struggling with addiction, maybe has questions on plant medicine, share the show with them. And you know what? Before I forgot to ask you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm on all social media platforms at I am Ruby, and then you can also head to my website, rubyfremon.com.
How do you spell Fremon?
Fremon, and then my podcast is Potent Truth.
And I love I am Ruby, because that's a simple one to remember. I love that. Good job on that. We'll see you next week on another episode of The Higher Self. Hey friends, thanks for watching this week's episode of The Higher Self. I want to invite you to go to dannymorel.com to get inside access to all of our programs and our upcoming events. And I look forward to seeing you live in person at one of our next events.